Welcome back, you bosses, to this State of Play review for the January Balance Data Slate. It has literally just dropped and we have taken it apart, and by we, these two have. I'm going to give natural reactions to this. I have, of course, been given a few little tidbits ahead of time, but I have much to say on this subject, plus I'm looking forward to seeing what else has been revealed. This is a really meaty one today.
It's a big one. It's a big boy.
I think this is the biggest one since 10th has released. I think that's fair to say. These are some significant changes here.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of change. I don't know if it's hard to compare it to the first one, the emergency one.
Yeah.
I think is what they call it, the emergency data slate.
Alert!
Because it feels like there's been a lot of changes, but also not nearly as many, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
it's
it
really
does.
hard to sort of explain.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, I'm reading it going like, I mean, that's a change.
There's quite a lot of stating the obvious, I think, that they've done. There's some stuff that I was expecting that I haven't seen, but there's plenty of changes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we attack this by the numbers? We're going to cover the index cards first. We have seen some changes to index cards.
Yeah. They're pretty minor. I mean, there's my favourite, I was saying to Beard off camera, is, hey Beard, did you know that rattling snipers have the rattling keyword?
Thank goodness they put that in, because I had no idea.
This is a massively significant change, everybody.
It's like what you say. There's like a few sort of obvious changes in here, but there's, I think, 3 big, weird ones that probably shouldn't have been in erratas and should have been included in the balanced data slate because they're actually, I think, balance updates rather than, oh, here's a slight rules tweak.
Right. Okay.
Although one of them is definitely an errata, and when we get to that one, you'll know who you are and why you're a very naughty boy. The first big one is for your boy Drago.
Yep. Okay, so you have told me this off camera, but I'm still really excited about it.
So, because Drago's ability is once per game he can, when he arrives from Deep Strike, get +3 inches to the charge. That now works on Teleport Assault as well.
Yeah, which is massive, which means that you can start him on the board. Because traditionally with Drago, as a Grey Knight player, you're starting him in Deep Strike so that you can benefit from that rule. Now you can start him on the board like the rest of the Grey Knights, pick him up at the end of a turn, if your opponent's turn, and then you can bring him down and you can get that +3 to the charge, which is really massive.
It becomes a huge threat if you go second, because if you go second, you go, okay, end of your turn 1, whoop, my turn 1, whoop.
And then,
no!
Typically he's leading a block of
Yes,
paladins.
that's a 6-inch charge.
Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
So that's a big, and that's what I kind of mean. Is
Why do you think they did that? Other than just it being, obviously, he's now unlocking his own army rule ability, which is fair, and you could argue perhaps he should have always had it. But I feel like they're throwing a bone, which will come across with other factions, to the factions which are considered not good,
and
or
that's why I
not
think
competing,
it's meant to be,
not competitive.
I would have put that in the balanced data slate.
Yeah.
Rather than, I mean, I would have put it in both, just as like, here's a reminder.
I guess amongst like a huge amount of clarifications, which is essentially what the index card errata is, I feel like that is a clarification that he should have those rules already.
Yes.
I feel like they might have felt like it's been missed off, potentially, so I kind of...
Yeah, maybe.
So most things have been, tweaked and updated here. Are there any other highlights with these errata cards?
Space Wolf players can be happy.
The hammers are +1 strength and damage 2 now.
On Wolfen.
On Wolfen.
Not on your...
Oh, no, but not on the Thunderwolf Cavalry.
No, because they've got heirloom weapons, not hammers.
Oh, that's right, because they treat them basically like Vanguard
Yeah, the
vets.
Vanguard veterans.
Yeah, so, okay, but the Wolfenhammer now actually is...
It does something, which is like...
So +1 strength, damage 2?
So strength 6, damage 2, yeah.
Okay.
Which makes him a bit more viable, I think.
I think it's still only -1.
Yeah.
And it's obviously doesn't have as many attacks.
But it's not -1 to hit.
I think there's still like 4 attacks at strength 6, weapon skill 3, -1 damage 2. And then they've got the 4-up invo because of the shield.
No, that's
they're a little bit interesting.
Well, that's much more interesting because I wept every time I looked at the Wolfen. I just wept.
You howled at the moon. I don't even like it.
Yeah, I because I actually like the Space Wolves, despite the fact that I think your planet should be destroyed by Magnus. I like the Space Wolves a lot. You should be a crusading fleet. Don't get me started on this. Anyway, regardless of that, I like them and I want Wolfen to be really good because they're supposed to be really good.
They were probably one of the worst.
Yeah, it was like being hit with a wet fish. It was just not good.
Yeah.
You know what? That's interesting. Damage 2. I mean, -1, sure, but combat in general intent is a bit wet fish. Yeah. It can be a bit wet fish sometimes. So, yeah, okay, fine.
It's hard to find the balance in combat with a D6 system, but that's just natures of a D6 system. The next big change, and this is definitely an errata, and this is what I mean by those of you who know what I'm talking about will know why this was errated, because you're all very, very naughty people. Exalted 8-bound, funnily enough, are 8-bound and cannot go in a Rhino. Because this was a thing. This was allowed at like several massive tournaments.
Oh,
They were
really?
like, Rhinos can't carry Terminators or 8-bound.
Yeah.
But Exalted 8-bound don't have the 8-bound keyword, they have the Exalted 8-bound keyword. So the argument was, and this was approved by several TOs at several very large events, going, yeah, that's technically legal, that's all right. Yeah, just put 8. And this is why, and this is part of why World Eaters have been one of the reasons why World Eaters have been doing really well, competitively speaking. Not been storming events, but they've been doing
If you
very
can
well.
load Exalted 8-bound up in cheap transports, that's a massive
But
benefit.
it's also because the wording of it is, well, you can put 12 infantry models in there.
Yeah.
But because
I
you
get
couldn't put 8-bound in there, they wouldn't take up 2 spaces. So people were riding around one Rhino filled with 12 8-bound.
Yeah, that's...
What's funny is that
That's a bold interpretation of the rule.
Well,
I mean, in all fairness,
bold
though,
is not the word I would use.
in all fairness, though, that is the rule as written. But I think that's a clear highlighting of, you know, that is not the intent there. If your little cousins, the 8-bound can't go in, you're Exalted guys can't go in either.
they're quite a lot bigger as well. Like a bit more bulky.
Even spikier.
Yeah. Can they go in a Land Raider?
I think they can go in a Land Raider, yeah.
Sure.
But they take up like the space of 3, it might be 2 models in a Land Raider.
But obviously, it's a shame that they even needed to clarify that.
But this is exactly why you've got, you know,
They do.
20 pages of rules commentary and all these erratas and things like that. It's like because of situations like that. Shouldn't be necessary, but it is. Speaking of rules commentary, there's also been some changes in that as well.
Okay, so should we jump to the rules commentary itself?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk.
So again, there's been a few little tweaks, little changes, you know, a couple of clarifications. I think they've added 5 paragraphs on explaining how to apply hazardous rule, like the hazardous wounds to units with characters in it, and it's just like, it works exactly as you'd think it is. There's now just 5 paragraphs of explanation in case someone wasn't sure.
Okay.
Probably not necessary, but clearly someone thought it was.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of, again, I would argue, balance changes in here. The big one, I think, is for sticky objectives.
Yes.
Because as they're written, so let's use the Plague Marines as well. This is a perfect example.
or Strike Marines.
In the last league that we ran, we all had units that could make objectives sticky.
Yep.
Yeah, there's literally the Plague Marine rule.
Yeah.
And the way that it's worded, no matter what version of it is your opponent can only, you control this objective until your opponent controls it at the end or start of any turn.
Yeah.
It now says, regardless of what the rules text say, it applies at the end of any phase.
It's a huge change.
Nowhere near as strong.
Huge change.
Yeah, which is massive.
Yeah,
really.
because you can move now. Like say if you're a combat unit, you know, you can move to at the end of your movement phase, take the objective back, and then still be allowed to charge off it to actually do something, as opposed to no, I can't do anything. So if I'm not holding it by the end of the turn, I'm not going to
It's still
steal
yours,
the objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice change. I like it. It brings some immersion back into the game.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a bit more realistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Another big change was to the reserves. Specifically, so there's a couple of changes to reserves. One, when you arrive from reserve or when you disembark from a transport, you only count as having making a normal move for the purposes of you can't move again and you don't remain stationary. Nothing else applies.
Okay.
So you cannot be shot by Overwatch.
Right.
Rules that apply when a unit arrives via, when a unit finishes a normal move, you can phantasm, or not phantasm because that's super and does everything, but trying to think there's...
Grey Knights have a Mist of Deimos.
Mist of Deimos,
Yeah.
so you can't Mist of Deimos, so again, great examples. We've got a living example here of the Mist of Deimos.
Yes, I am the Mist.
You can't Mist of Deimos when someone arrives from Deep Strike.
Right.
You can't Mist of Deimos when someone goes, I've disembarked from my Land Raider with my 8-bound 3 inches away from
Yeah.
me. You can't Mist of Deimos. You go, uh-oh.
It's funny actually because I don't think
you ever
I
used
would have
that.
played it that way anyway, because I always take the deep strike or reserve as the last thing that happens in the
Yeah.
movement phase. But good to have that clarification. It's never
clarification.
come up in the game
Yeah,
that I can
no.
play. I don't think I would have. My instinct would have been I can't do it.
Yeah.
But interesting that they clarified.
And then another big change to reserves is, well, 2 big changes to reserves. One of which is you can disembark from a unit that arrives from reserves.
Right, yeah. So
This was a real big point of contention of like, but when do you disembark? It's like, well, it happens in the movement phase because it's the movement subphase and then the reinforcement subphase.
again, it's what comes last.
Yeah.
Can you still do? Yeah.
You now can go, I've got, say, an impulsor in strategic reserve. I've arrived from strategic reserve and my unit of intercessors are going to jump out. They still have to be 9 inches away horizontally. They still count as disembarking from a transport, so they can't charge, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But you can do that now, which is, a nice little change.
Just for example, though, you could reserve a Land Raider and get out and charge from it.
No, because the
Some
rule
rule.
specifies if you disembark from a rule that this is in the commentary, it specifies you can act normally, but you cannot charge.
Oh, and it specifically
It
says
specifies, so you cannot do that with a
charge.
Land Raider.
Great.
Stop it.
No, it's just I'm
Stop
just
it.
looking at it. I'm just looking at it.
The next big change is actually an errata, which is buried right at the bottom of the 20 pages of rules commentary, which is rapid ingress only works on deep strike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think many people were using it on strategic reserve anyway.
It didn't even, until I read it, it didn't even occur to me that that was a thing.
Well, again, I think, my instinct was the spirit is that you need the deep strike to rapidly ingress.
I think it's even in the fluff text. It's they're ready and waiting to arrive from, to tactically deep strike.
Yeah.
So you have to have the deep strike rule and you can only arrive via the deep strike rule
Okay.
if you're using rapid ingress.
Okay.
I think a lot of that is because there's quite a few armies now that are getting abilities or detachment rules, which are you arrive via strategic reserve.
Yeah.
So you have to have the deep strike keyword
Okay.
in order to rapid ingress. So that's I think a good balance change for those niche scenarios. Is it one that will come up in your day-to-day? Probably not, but I'm sure there's something's happened at a tournament somewhere where that's been a necessity.
Yeah, because the majority of this tends to come from, competitiveness.
100%.
Okay.
In terms of other things in the rules commentary, they've clarified that command reroll is indeed done on the unit in question that you're using the reroll on. So yes, this means if you're battle shocked, you can't use it. Yes, this means things like rites of battle do work on it because it is a battle tactic stratagem. Because again, there was a bit of several large events were going, well, it's technically not done on a unit. You're just re-rolling a roll that your army's. That's not the rules, but now it's clarified for complete posterity.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You're re-rolling a roll that the unit.
No,
Yeah.
you're not. Yeah.
I'll try not to apply my own logic to it.
No.
it's best not to.
Yeah, they've clarified a few things like disembarking and embarking on transports with bases. You always go 3 inches horizontally, 5 inches vertically, because otherwise it was impossible to get out of venoms or like grav tanks and stuff. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
So those are the highlights.
Those are like the big changes. There's a few other little like tweaks and changes in there. Like I'm not going to go through 5 paragraphs of how to apply mortal.
No,
wounds
yeah,
from
and
hazardous.
this is a 20-page document.
Yeah,
by
it's
the way,
already
guys.
big and chunky, so there's not, if there's something that we've missed, we'll discuss it in the comments below, happily. But
Well, let's move on then to the real meat and potatoes,
Oh,
the
delicious.
actual balanced data slate itself.
Yep.
indeed.
Okay.
There's,
Where would you like to kick off with this?
Well, I don't think there's anything major in the core rules. I'm surprised Overwatch is still 1 CP.
Right,
There's been no further like progression with the power of Flame
They
Torrent Overwatch.
feel that the change of the enemy unit having to be visible, I think, is they feel that obviously that's enough.
Yeah, and not being able to do it on Titanic.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the core rules, I don't think there's any changes.
No. So if you go into the faction rules, most of them have something different. Not all of them. I don't think we're going to go through all of these right now. But
Well, what are considered? I mean, I know.
well, Chaos Space Marines has had some interesting
Okay,
additions.
let's go over those.
Eldari Chaos Space Marines are the big boys that
Yeah.
you'd expect to have received the big changes.
Yeah, so a few clarifications a few changes to Chaos Space Marines. One is that a unit can only embark in a transport that has the same keyword, which makes sense because for an army that pretty much exclusively revolves around keywords, it makes sense that a Slash unit can't go into a Nurgle Rhino and just sort of jank their way to victory. Dark Obscuration, which is one of the better stratagems, they've increased the range in which you can't be shot. Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to 18 inches.
Yeah, because it used to be low NOP 12, now it's 18.
Which is very good.
Much easier to get around.
Yeah, for sure. Profane Zeal has changed as well, so this now specifically applies to Chaos Undivided. You can't use this with another keyword anymore, so you have to be Chaos Undivided. They've actually changed the effect as well, so it just allows you to reroll wound rolls, which is still good.
It's still really good, and you're still getting reroll 1s from being Undivided and using a Dark Pact anyway. But it's not just 1 CP reroll everything on 4 Obliterators.
Yeah.
Or 10 Chosen.
It was way too much. Aside from that, Accursed Cultists have been changed to their AC is now 1, because I think they have been used to great delight at the old tournament scene. Yeah. And they have as well, I think that's it.
So you can only revive them in your command phase now, because previously it was you bring a Cursed Cultist back in the command phase.
Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that because this applies to Chaos Marines and to Chaos Knights as well, there's been one change for Chaos Demons.
Okay.
It literally will only apply to using Chaos Demons as allies.
Oh.
Which is very sad. It basically means
Because they're not in a good spot.
they're not in a good spot, and we'll get to them in the Munitor and Field Manual. They're still not in a good spot. The Demonic Pact rule, which is what allows you to take them as allies, it now specifies you have to have battle line for every non-battle line.
Right.
What this does is it means you can't take the Changeling by himself.
Yeah.
You need to have horrors.
Yeah.
You can't take a Bloodthirster by himself. You have to take Bloodletters.
Yeah.
Because it has to be of the same keyword. So
Sure.
this just stops those...
Thematically, it makes sense, but
Competitively, it hurts quite a
it hurts
lot.
them even more
Yeah.
than they already are.
Yeah. That doesn't apply if you're running pure demons.
Okay.
But it just means that Chaos Knights, where the traditional loadout was to take the Changeling because he's lone operative,
Okay.
you can't do
so
that
it's
anymore.
just allies.
It's just for allies, but
Okay.
it's just a little bit frustrating that you see and go, oh, what balance update? What update do I get as a demons player? You don't.
No.
Oh.
No.
It's sad, man. Demons always get...
They
just get
I
left
don't think they
behind.
know what to do with them.
They've got no
when
idea.
they write the rules, they look at it and they go, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
Demons have the issue of being a melee only army in an edition that is very punishing to melee.
Yeah.
And then they've been priced to the point of like, but they could deep strike 6 inches away.
Yeah.
They could make their 5-up
Yeah.
invuln. Yeah, I know, but I've got 1 wound and I'm toughness 3.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, bolt guns kill me. A 5-up invuln doesn't do anything. And that's always been the issue with demons. It's the same with Harlequins back in the day and nowadays. It's very hard to balance that invulnerable save and that potential that they have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We should go over Eldari though.
We should, just before we do, Custodes players have received a big change.
Okay.
Because the Aegis of the Emperor now works against devastating wounds.
Okay.
Nice change.
Yeah.
Significant.
So
okay.
now,
A 4 up against devastating wounds is very, very
It's massive,
Yeah.
yeah. That will help increase their survivability.
Speaking of nice changes,
Eldari?
Eldari.
Okay, talk to me.
Well,
talk to me.
they've changed Strands of Fate now to only being 66 on your Strands of Fate
much
dice.
better.
Better.
It's now pretty much once per turn.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much once per turn.
Okay.
And you've got to work to get more of that. Because that will still be like, oh, you didn't roll a single 6 in your first batch of 6. Do you
Yeah.
want to re-roll it and take 1 away? It's now a much harder choice. Is 6 too much? Maybe. Is the rule itself too much? Yeah. So I would rewrite it entirely, but as a good hop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Bless you.
It needs. I mean, I love the idea of it
Yeah.
in theory, but the reality is you can spike. There are ways to manipulate it to not guarantee that you spike, but heavily favour that you will spike, and then you literally control the outcome of scenarios, which is actually not fun.
No.
It's actually not fun. Like if I know as the opponent that I've got my big cannon and
Here's my
I
volcanic
can,
cannon 6.
and you are guaranteed to save it. There was it like no.
I mean, arguably, you could be like, I mean, it sort of goes with the fluff, but it kind of ruins games.
That
Takes away the fun of blowing stuff up.
Yeah. Or the element of risk or chance, is completely removed.
Bit of a shame.
Okay, right. Any other changes? We've got Fate's Messenger here, Phantasm, Eldrad Ulthran, Night Spinner.
So a lot of these are quality of life. So Eldrad now is, he gives you +3 dice, and then the only thing they've changed is in brackets, this will give you 9 dice.
Right.
Because if they didn't change that, someone would be like, well, I get 15 because that's what the rule says. No! You're why we need many paragraphs. Phantasm's a good change because it's now a D6 rather than a flat 7.
Okay.
So that is a big change.
Okay.
The Night Spinner is now -2 rather than half. So it just puts it in line with other movement reduction type.
Yeah, Phantasm though, that's a big old hit if you do
Yeah.
roll that 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That's significant because you're still paying for the strat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Fate's Messenger now applies to the bearer rather than the bearer's unit, so you can't turn a 1 into a 6/4 a Wraith Cannon,
Yep.
for example.
Yep.
And then there's 2 other big changes, one of which is on the basis of the Wraith Cannons, they can only shoot what shot them,
Yep.
the Wraith Guard.
Yep.
So there's no more, I'm going to shoot your Wraith Guard, and then the Wraith Guard blow up the tank next to you that hasn't shot yet.
Yes, which is no.
Very sad. The Yin Khan is a big change,
Okay.
because he can use his teleportation in your turn.
Yeah, once in each
Not
of
in
your
your
turns.
opponent's turn,
Yeah.
and it's once.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think it was always once, but it's now
Yes.
specifically in your turn. So you need to actively be killing something,
Yep.
which is how it worked a lot of the times anyway. But there's no more, you kill something, you teleport over, and then your opponent kills something and you get back
exactly.
out to safety. It's like you can't do that anymore. It's like you've got to commit.
That pretty much covers Eldari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing
Blood
for-
Angels.
Oh boy.
You know, people may
Hello.
know that I'm a bit of a fan.
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, you like
It's the
them
same
more
picture.
now.
Yeah.
Red
Well,
Thirst is now +2 strength on the charge. And an
Instead of
extra
+1
attack.
strength.
Oh boy.
Okay.
That's a 100% increase.
That's very
Murder stonks.
interesting. That's very interesting. Not for your line infantry per se, because we always had access to like the Lance Strat and so forth. But
But now you don't need it against toughness 3.
no,
Which is nice.
what's more interesting to me about that is how that affects things like Power Fists.
Yes, they're now going to be strength 10.
Oh boy.
That puts you into
Oh, boy.
contender territory with taking out some vehicles, which is quite nice.
You're punching out most vehicles on a 4 at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know. Is that better than your standard, Space Marine detachment options? That I think,
Gladius is just so good.
yeah, that I think is still up for debate. It shouldn't be up for debate because, in my humble opinion, if you are a specialist faction like Blood Angels, which have your own supplement, you should only be allowed to use that. Now, obviously, you hope that your detachment rules are actually good.
Yeah.
Which
The
I
Unforgiven
understand why,
Task Force.
I understand why you want to use obviously the better detachment. I get that, but it causes lots of problems balance-wise, in my opinion. But look, it's a nice change. It's a free change. It's an unexpected change.
Yeah.
I'll take it, and it's obviously a little acknowledgement from G-Dubs that hey, we recognise that maybe your detachment's not as good as the base detachment.
Not as interesting.
So
I mean, it does raise the argument of having a more combat-focused Marine detachment, which
Yeah.
is quite nice.
Yeah.
I think chaplains with these units will be very popular.
yes, definitely.
The strength 10 power is +1 to wound.
Yeah, it's just inbuilt. Yeah.
Young
It's
Bard
really
Oh,
is
boy.
very happy.
Yeah, I mean, Death Company love that change, obviously.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so Death Guard, I just wanted to touch on Death Guard. They seem to have had one little change, which is only for the Biologist Putrefier. The
Yeah,
reason I just
so-
wanted to talk about the Death Guard is because obviously the last balanced data slate, they had a huge,
And they've
huge
really gone
overhaul,
up.
Transformed.
Really,
which was really
good.
needed.
Very
It's exactly what
good.
you want to see. From
Yes,
a balanced-
yes.
And this is kind of like, I'm just going to go back very slightly on that Blood Angels. Is that going to have the impact that the Death Guard one did?
I don't
No,
think so.
absolutely not in
No.
any
There's
way,
no
shape, or form.
flexibility.
Yeah,
in the
I
great
don't
thing.
think so. Yeah, that's why I'm not like, oh, this is amazing. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's not going to change too much of any Blood Angel army because you'll still be taking the same units. You're just hoping that their quality is a little bit better now, which it is.
Well, the great thing with the Death Guard change previously was that they gave you ways to adapt.
Yeah.
So you got 3 ways of running your army effectively at the
Yeah.
beginning of the game, and it completely transformed how they work.
Right. Now with the Biologist Putrefier, which is the only change that I can see immediately.
Basically, what they've done there, because it's always been you can use grenades for free,
Yeah.
but it also means that you can do it if you've already used that stratagem that turn. So you can do
Right.
grenades. You can do the grenade strat plus this.
Right, so it's a double hit. Can you no longer do that?
Although they've added it in, so you can do that. I think
Oh.
previously you could just do grenades for free, but I think that from what I can tell, they've added it in, so another unit could also do the grenade strat.
Oh, okay.
I think it's also once per game per Putrefy.
That was already a thing.
Oh, was that already a thing? Okay. cool.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, what other ones do we have to cover here?
So
And obviously, I'm saying all of my commentary here is all based on I don't know what the Munitorum field manual's done yet because
Yeah,
obviously if they made significant changes to Blood Angel points, then that could also make things.
They've given some help
No?
to the.
I don't think so.
They've given some help to Death Guard again with the points. But we'll get into that.
Are they giving more help to the Death Guard?
yeah,
That's very
the
interesting.
Munitorum field manual is confusing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how this plot thickens.
Yeah.
See how deep this rabbit
I
hole
think
goes.
they made a change to Astra Militarum. The voice of command can now work when you disembark from a transport.
Okay.
So I think it gives them a little bit more flexibility.
Okay.
There's no changes to Chaos Demons otherwise. There's no changes to Chaos Knights otherwise, which is very sad.
Colts? Your
No
boys?
changes to Gene Stealer Colts, which is very sad.
Yeah, okay.
No changes to Harlequins, like pure Harlequins.
Sure.
There was one change to Sisters. I think the Triumph does something slightly different now,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure exactly. There was a change to Imperial Knights.
Yep.
The vow of reroll A1 to hit or A1 to wound is now reroll a hit or wound.
Okay.
So it's just
yeah.
a flat reroll hit.
Okay.
Is it hit or wound or hit and?
Reroll, hit roll, and you can reroll one
Okay.
wound roll.
So that is much better, but you still don't get your bondsman's back.
Right.
Yeah.
Fine.
Drakari's had some interesting changes.
Drakari have had big changes.
Yeah.
Big changes.
So in here, your power from pain, in addition to what it was already doing, if it's a melee attack, you get an additional AP in melee with power from pain.
Wow.
Yeah, and you
Because they're really trying to save the witch cult there.
yeah,
They're just trying to say melee in general.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
and you'll be very pleased to know that the Archon can now join Incubi.
Good. You know, like he always, like he should. Like he always should have done.
What?
Yeah,
Like
But that's what's in the fluff.
that'd be ridiculous.
What?
they heard your cries.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the court of the... Could a court also join the Incubi?
I mean, we'd have to check it.
I double
as
check that.
far as I
That's
can tell.
actually really cool.
That's something that always should have
Okay.
been. The AP bonus is quite pleasant.
Well, that would, of course, affect...
That will affect, which is
Incubi as well.
It will also help in a pinch, Cabalite Warriors, it'll affect Talos.
Do you want some more good news about your Grey
I
Knights?
have more good news.
The Grey Knights.
My beloved Grey Knights.
So you've had some profile changes, which is very nice.
Yep.
So your heavy Psy Cannon is now AP2 and ignores cover, which is very nice.
That's nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
It gives him some actual anti-tank punch.
Your
Okay.
Nemesis Demon Great Hammer is now weapon skill 3
Good.
because it's being wielded by a mechanical suit, which makes sense. Do
Right, so there's no -1 to hit. I'm hitting on 3s.
Yeah.
you want some more good news?
Yes.
Your Nemesis Great Sword is now weapon skill 2, baby.
Oh.
Is it because it's wielded by a mechanical greatsuit?
It may be.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It
Yeah.
makes the Nemesis the Nemesis Greg Knights.
The Nemesis Bread Hammer.
It makes them actually good at punching out big. Like the Psy Cannon change alone is fantastic.
Yeah, it
because they were
is.
really struggling with high, like good shooting output.
Well, I'll be honest. I just think the Dread Knight. I mean, I don't know obviously what the points are. Have they changed any points?
I don't believe they've changed any points for.
I mean,
Greg Knights.
that's okay. I just felt the Dread Knight dies way too easy.
Yeah.
And had
It's
very
still flimsy.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, but it also didn't have damage output worth its points. On top of that, so you were ending up as a Grey Knight player being like, I'm just going to take more Terminators,
Yeah.
which is a bit boring. Like for me, cool, massive Terminator army can look cool and it's fun, but you kind of want to have some of your other bespoke units and some flavour in there, right? So that's really cool. That will make me revisit Dread Knights, certainly, assuming they haven't done something silly like putting the points up for that unit after giving them
yeah,
these
I think
changes.
the only points that have changed are for librarians.
Oh, okay.
They've gone up slightly.
Yeah, because they were very good in the assassin role. So yeah.
But yeah, that's just a really nice change to let them
Great.
feel like they do on the tabletop what they should be doing in the fluff.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. Okay.
Votan, I don't believe, received any changes.
No pluses next to
Marines
them.
didn't receive any changes. Space Wolves got their detachment now working at the end of every turn.
Okay.
So
all
they
right.
can activate a saga in your opponent. So if you kill, because previously it was like, oh, if you killed your opponent's character in their turn, you don't get the saga.
Yeah, which
It's like-
sucks. Yeah. Again, like they had a detachment ability which
Yeah.
you might not even be able to use.
Yeah, the change is fine. It's still not. It's still probably my favorite detachment out of anything, just because of how fluffy
Oh
it
yeah,
is.
it is cool.
And
Yeah.
not just because they're wolves and they're fluffy, but like just this is what wolves should be doing. Their hero should be going out and doing all these mighty deeds.
Yeah.
It's now a bit easier to trigger.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's, it's still not good.
No.
But it's just a
they
bit
need
easier.
an overhaul, I think. But cool. At least that is something. World Eaters.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
had some changes.
Yeah, a couple of changes, yeah.
The Berserker Glaive looks like they've just completely changed the rule for Berserker Glaive. So that's now add 1 to the attacks and damage characteristic of melee weapons.
Yeah, I think it used to be you get plus D3 instead on the charge, so they've removed that element. I will miss the 9 attack damage 5 Master of Executions, but from a game balance perspective, it's just nice and neat. The Master of Executions with that is still going to be, I think, 6 attacks at damage 4 on the charge. Like, he's still a monster.
Very
he's just not one-shotting knights.
Yes, which makes sense. Favored of Khorne is now once per battle, that enhancement for when you make your blessings. And this is quite interesting. The Demon Prince Infernal Fortitude ability, he would give a 5-up invulnerable save to World Eater's inventory within 6 inches. If they've already got an invulnerable save, it makes them a 4-up invulnerable save.
That's really interesting.
So running Demon Prince alongside Exalted 8-bound, which now can't fit in a Rhino, are now a bit more resilient.
Yeah, that's cool. I know a lot of people bag on the princes at the moment. They're not considered very good, which I largely agree with across all of the Chaos factions.
It's just too expensive, I think.
Yeah.
Were foot Demon Princes a big deal? I think they used to give a flat 4-up in Bun. So it's now worse for things.
Oh, they've changed it that way.
I think it's worse for Berserker Hordes.
Oh, okay.
But again, I'm like, I could be very wrong here. I mean, clearly I am, based on the feedback that tournaments have been given. Because this is kind of where all this feedback comes from. So, like, let's be completely transparent. We used to play test for Games Workshop. We've not been asked about any of this.
No.
Yeah,
and they've been very clear with stating that the balanced data slates are information received from their very, very small playtesting groups and tournament organisers as part of the no longer ITC.
Yes.
So was this, like, someone who plays at competitive events, were you seeing a lot of footprints in Berserker Hordes, or were they, because my impression is you'd slap them in Rhinos.
Yeah, that's what I thought was happening. I mean, with this, looking at the way you'd do it is you probably run a double Prince to create a double aura.
Yeah.
So you've got some redundancy, and then you put your Exalted and so forth.
Yeah.
In between. But yeah, I mean, look, okay. But again, you're spending those points on the princes. That means less points for things like Master of Executions, yada, yada. Okay.
I think that's it.
That's pretty much it from the data slate.
I'm very sad to see that there was no changes in Space Marines for Hellblasters and their stupid rule. Shoot on death. It'd be so simple. It would be so simple just to completely change that rule.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
a dumb rule.
It's a dumb rule.
It's not
It makes
great,
them
is
too
it?
powerful. I know it's Space Marines, but it's just, you just see them all the time.
Yeah.
And like, in terms of like the immersion of the game, which I think is still very important even when you're talking about competitive, how is something that is exploding a Space Marine and then allowing them to shoot again?
It's such an odd rule.
It's
very
very
strange. Yeah,
strange. All it needs to do is
They'd
just say,
still be good without that rule.
yeah, they just don't suffer hazardous.
Yeah.
No hazardous because they're plasma
Or
experts.
re-roll the hazardous.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
even
yeah.
then it's
Anything.
just like, oh my god, we're now just re-rolling that.
And it just makes it such a long-winded, like drawn-out process whenever a Hellblaster dies.
The balanced data slate, this one's really interesting because they've made some big changes to Drukhari. And then there's another big change coming up in a minute, which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
But they made no changes to Genius of the Cults.
No.
They made no changes to pure Harlequins. I know they're kind of under the purview of Eldari. So pure Harlequins got worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've made no changes to Chaos Knights,
Yeah.
apart from making the competitive build worse because you can't run it anymore.
Yeah.
They made no changes to quality of life or improvements for demons.
Yeah.
Thousand Suns, they didn't make any changes to. The change that Guard got,
Yeah.
it's fine.
minor,
They didn't make any changes to, I think Orcs were doing okay, but it's still this kind of thing where you go, there's certain armies which, like, I guess the mindset, and it's always this way with Games Workshop is, if we make, and this is what I agree with, you want to bring the powerful stuff down.
Right.
You don't want to be going overboard with bringing the bad stuff up, because otherwise it just is doing this all the time. If you do that, and then this comes up by there, you go, okay, that clearly wasn't enough. Now we can do that, which is what they've done with Drukhari.
Yeah.
But like Thousand Suns are like 40, the threshold is 55 to 45. Drukhari, I think, are on 43%.
Yeah.
And that was basically because of Skari.
Yeah.
Bless him. And his little Canadian socks. He's working hard for the Dark Kin there.
Yeah.
But then they've done, here's a big change, here's a huge amount of points drops, and here's a brand new detachment because they were off of the Goldilocks zone by 2%.
Yeah.
You've got other armies that are on 46% receiving nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Yeah.
it's a bit
interesting,
odd,
that. Yeah.
especially for some of the armies that are, in my opinion, again, I'm not au fait with the competitive scene at the moment completely, but Imperial Knights were struggling and they received a very minor change. Thousand Sons were struggling, very minor change. Demons are struggling, very minor change. You know, and this is like to points, Thousand Sons didn't get any changes.
Yeah.
So there's some real odd decisions here.
Yeah.
But if you're a Drukhari player, you're going to have a good turn.
Yeah, I feel like, so I've only briefly skimmed this before, so I'm aware that they've got a new detachment.
A brand new detachment?
I actually didn't know
saw
that
that
they
coming?
had the AP bonus in Melee and that now an Archon can join Incubi. That's great, so I was genuinely like, wow. So I've looked over the detachment very briefly. It looks really cool. It's called Sky Splinter Assault. It doesn't replace the what you already have in the index cards. It says that you can. This is just a new option now.
They're the only new detachment.
Yeah.
Now I'm just before we go to, I'm really disappointed in this because back in 8th edition when they had the indexes,
Yeah.
and it was around about the 9-month mark where they released the chapter approved.
Yeah.
And every army that didn't have a codex at that point got here's 2 relics, 2 stratagems.
Yeah.
And like not a detachment rule, but like something that you can use.
Yep.
And it's like, that's just a nice, neat little bonus to armies that haven't got a codex.
To tide you over.
To tide you over.
Yeah.
Now we know that based on the roadmap, there's going to be a number of codexes coming out this year.
Yeah.
But not all of them because there's like 25 different factions.
Yep.
So this to me says one of 2 things. They were really desperate to make Drukhari better, or they're going to be like the last one.
Yeah, well,
Because
exactly.
no one else has got a detachment.
No.
Which is like,
No.
they could have gone like, you know what? Here's a new detachment for Thousand Sons. Here's a new detachment. You don't need to do one for Orcs, Custodes, Tau. We know that those codexes are coming per the roadmap.
Yeah.
So, you know, those ones you probably don't need to do it for, but the ones where they've not announced it
Yeah.
might not have hurt them to do it.
No.
Because this is also a perfect example. Do you remember the old Bolter discipline when they said, this is a beta test, let us
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
This would have been a perfect example for them to go, here's a new detachment for every army that isn't getting a codex this year.
Yeah.
These are in beta.
Yeah.
Use them. Let us know how you get on with
I
them.
would actually love it if they did that.
If Games
'Cause there would
Workshop
be
did
like a
actual beta
transparency
testing.
there as well. It would be. I think everyone would love that.
Yeah.
But hey, what do I know? So it appears that the main detachment rule is each time a Drukhari unit from your army disembarks from a transport, so they do need to disembark, which often Drukhari players, especially if you're Kabalites, like to stay in there. Until the end of the turn, your unit's ranged weapons get the ignores cover rule, which is really good on Splinter because obviously cover really annoys us. So, boring. But more importantly, and this is a humdinger of a rule, your unit's melee weapons have the lance ability.
Very powerful.
Now, I read this before even knowing that you get the bonus AP.
It's
Yeah.
very powerful. So now there, if you pop that pain, you jumped out of a Raider or a Tantalus, you're getting reroll hits,
Yeah.
+1 to wound, +1 AP.
That on Witches, Incubi.
The Archon gives them reroll wounds as well, doesn't it? When he's empowered.
Yes.
So they're rerolling everything with pluses to wound, +1 AP. Like now they're a melee unit. Now
That's scary.
it is scary. And even the ignore cover jumping out with your range weapon isn't a bad thing because what do you do with Venoms? You automatically jump back in the fight phase.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's a really cool, evocative playstyle of jump in, jump out,
Yeah.
gun stuff down.
Yeah.
And it's much more applicable
Yeah.
than the Real Space Raid.
Right. It actually makes me really excited
Yeah.
to play my Kabalites again. So this is, from a Drukhari player's point of view, this is cool because I'm starting to get that hit and run, that sort of, that element back.
And that's also a really good incentive for Venoms over Raiders.
Yes.
Because Raiders, you
Correct.
can't, I think there's a stratagem which allows them to jump
There
back
is,
in.
yeah.
So I'm jumping ahead a little
Yeah.
bit.
Although this detachment has its own stratagems.
Yeah,
so-
but that's what I mean. Is like with all detachments, it will have its own enhancements, its own strategy, and I think that stratagem is in there
Yes.
to jump in.
Great. Well, I've not read the stratagems yet, so I'll take your word for that. But one of the things which I'm hoping for, because I just read the detachment rule, is that also we might get some enhancements which are a bit more relevant to.
Yeah.
Well, Phantasmal Smoke is quite nice with this detachment. Basically, it works on a Drukhari model. As long as they're within 6 inches of a transport, it's smoke essentially, so they get cover and stealth.
Wow.
So that can work on a Drukhari model only in the bearer's unit.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could use that on.
That's cool.
You could use it on Tantalus.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. And then you've got Spiteful Raider. Each time the bearer's unit destroys, again, Drukhari model only. Each time the bearer's unit destroys an enemy unit in the fight phase, if that enemy unit was within range of one or more objective markers when the bearer's unit was selected to fight, you gain 1 additional pain token. That's nice.
That's cute.
Nightmare Shroud's cool too.
Yeah, what does that do?
No Overwatch when you disembark from transport.
Oh my
That's nice.
goodness
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Little insurance policy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's just, they are really slapping on the melee.
Yeah, they want this to be,
benefits here.
they want to get their melee back. Now, I know I'm going to annoy probably some Dark Elder players out there in the comments.
Okay, I'm here. Hello.
Like, I get it. Like, their melee, like most armies' melee, is a bit wet fish.
Yes.
They hit like a pool noodle.
Yeah.
My concern is, here's this change, here's this change, here's this boost, here's this boost, here's these points drops. Oh, we're back to 9th edition when they trade mega effectively. And I hate that term so much.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like,
Obviously, I've not seen any points. Have they got points drops?
Pretty much everything has dropped in points. Like even the Talos, which is what everyone was using, have received points drops. The Raiders, like everything has received a points drop. Pretty
Okay,
much.
now I'm more in. I'm
now
not sure they need that.
And
with
that's
all of
kind
this.
of what I mean is Games
Because I
Workshop.
was already packing in a fair amount.
Games Workshop have done what Games Workshop always do, which is here's a buff, but also another buff, and then a buff that we've not thought about. And
Yeah,
then
this is buff ting. This is what this is.
it's just a bit.
Really...
I've not looked at it like the points properly. I've just seen a sea of green. But it just, if we go back to like, oh, a unit of 10 incubi is like 100 points. You go.
It's like
Yeah, I mean, I need
know
to
they
look
need
at
all
this.
these buffs and they've got to
I mean,
jump back
I
to
felt
transport
this
and a pain
detachment
token.
alone, plus the extra AP is
Yeah.
very good
It's
already.
It's like one of the rules writers has watched too much Leon and he's sort of seeing himself as a bit of a decade. It's like, give them everything. So I want everything!
Goodness me, that's possibly the best reference I've ever heard you say. Great film. Anyway, okay, you finally have Sadistic Fulcrum, Drukhari model again. So again, they're not locking it into a specific cult.
Yeah.
Each time you expend a pain token to empower the bearer's unit in the shooting phase, you can select one friendly Drukhari transport within 3 inches of the bearer's unit, and until the end of the phase, that transport's also empowered. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay, nice. Again, no idea what they cost points-wise. So then they have six new stratagems. Yep. Any highlights here with you two having read them?
Yeah, I think it's Wraith-like Retreat is your big one. As it were, because
that's 1 CP, end of the fight phase. 1 Drukhari infantry unit from your army that has just fought. Your unit can make a normal or fallback move, but unless it is a witch's unit, it must end the move wholly within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of a friendly transport, and must embark within that transport.
Proper hit and run.
That's really cool.
It is at the end of the fight phase. You don't get to fight and then go, ha! But if you've done enough damage, but you know your opponent's got aggressors around the corner with flamers, you just go, see ya!
You're out in the open.
Yeah,
So basically,
I'll fall back into the safety of my Tantalus.
incubi wagon, the Tantalus,
Rides
with
again.
with the Archon and the Court, can jump out, murder something, and jump back in.
And you could also opt for the Skyborn Annihilation stratagem, which when you disembark from a transport, you get sustained, but if you're Kabalite Warriors, you get sustained too.
Yeah. They're specifically in the shooting phase.
Yeah, in the shooting phase.
Wow.
You're going to murderize in the...
And they're ignoring cover.
I rolled
Yeah.
a 6 for my Dark Lance. Sustained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horrible. I think there's one in here to give a vehicle a 4-up in burn, which is very nice on a Tantalus.
Yeah.
I realise we're talking about the Tantalus a lot, but it's an interesting one because, again, it's that whole thing of this is why Games Workshop kind of don't want you to use Forge World models because they kind of make things... a 4-up in burn on a Venom is very different to a 4-up in burn on a Tantalus.
It is. But I kind of also don't feel bad because we've only got
Because you're a Drukhari player?
Yeah, because we've had the Tantalus should be some big boat for the Drukhari. It's I don't mind if you take the Tantalus away and replace it with some new plastic kit.
Yeah.
That's cool. But we
Tantalai.
need something. The Tantalus just looks epic as well. I love using it. Otherwise, it's just the same vehicle spanned over and over and over again.
But imagine if you had a big variety and they were like, no, you can't use any of these things.
That would make me very sad.
Makes me very sad.
That would make me very sad.
Bringing it up once again.
How's your Chaos Slaughter jump pack doing?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Zooming his way here as we speak.
Swooping Mockery is another big one.
Okay, so this is 1 CP, using your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. Targets 1 Drukhari transport from your army, not within engagement range, and not within 9 inches of an enemy unit that just ended that move. your transport can make a normal move of 6 inches. That's really cool.
Nice that.
Yeah, really cool.
So the detachment is really leaning into the play style, you know,
Yeah.
that really evocative raiding play style.
yeah.
My concerns, as I've mentioned, are it's kind of this is a boon, this is a boon, this is a buff, this is a buff, these are points drops. On top of the standard playstyle of I'm gonna spam raiders anyway.
Yeah.
And it's
That's the problem with Drukhari. Like, so my
they are kind of monoplay.
Yeah, my love for Drukhari came from an edition where they didn't have invulnerable saves everywhere, and all a Night Shield did was reduce the enemy range of the guns. So, bolters could destroy Venoms back then. They really were glass cannon, and then they've evolved into this murder machine where their vehicles at one point arguably were much tougher than Imperial transports, you know. And then obviously with 10th edition, that's now
They have reined it back a lot.
way
Yeah,
back.
They are still, you know, their chassis are flimsy. They still only have like a 4-up, 6-up in barn.
Yeah, but then I think they became a little bit boring.
But it's the fact that you can run so many of them.
Yes, I mean they have helped with things like now you can only take 6 of a transport type.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the days of 9 plus
Nine
Venoms,
Raiders,
you know,
yeah.
9 Raiders exactly. So you know there have been changes which have helped, but then it's also weirdly made them even more bland. This is quite an interesting detachment. I'm now worried. Well, it's a very powerful detachment, and the rules changes are powerful. I am now worried about the points because it could go the other way now.
I really like what they've done.
Yeah,
and
they're cool.
What this means, or what this kind of stuff. I guess my other main issue with this is kind of what I was saying. You know, they could have done a detachment for all the armies that aren't going to get a codex anytime soon, and gone, this is a beta.
Yeah.
You know, and they might have been able. You know, they might have turned around and gone, look, these are beta. You know, check with your TO. You know, they could have done that element of it. You know, that might not have helped them competitively speaking, but it might have just been nice to go, here's a little something.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if this has literally been ripped from a future codex.
Oh,
it
almost,
would be one
certainly.
of the
with
one
our
of the
previous
detachments.
experience,
Yeah.
like they probably have detachment rules written for all of the
Yeah,
codexes
almost
already
certainly.
because they're already done. So
Here's the issue: is that it's going to be 6 months before we get another data slate. So
Yes.
if they go, okay, well, we see that Chaos Knights are struggling a little bit again. I'm just using Chaos Knights as an example because I've used them recently, and I think they've got a very mono. You want to talk about a mono build army competitively?
Yeah.
The mono build, which you can't do anymore, has been punished massively for an army that wasn't doing as well as other armies anyway.
Yeah.
But let's say they go, oh, in 6 months' time, here's a detachment.
Yeah.
But during that 6 months, Thousand Sons have also been suffering.
Yeah.
So are we going to give one detachment? Are we not going to give any? Are we going to, like, this is, they've almost set this precedent now, but they need to keep that pay, or maybe they'll surprise me and in 2 months' time go, yeah, like, here's a, you know, spring update, detachment for everyone.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Just for a bit of rejuvenation as well, in terms of some of the armies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, look, let's go over the points now. Obviously, we can't cover every single point change that's been made.
I could do a quick up and down.
Yeah, please, yeah. Well, I quite like the triangle up and down that they've got in here.
Yeah, you
helps.
can at a real glance now see up or down,
Yeah.
and then the points change below, so you don't have to look at it and go, have they gone up or have they gone down? You still have to cross-reference to see how much by.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I presume that the Warhammer app will be updated on the day.
Yes, it has been previously.
This will probably be updated. The Warhammer app will ironically probably be updated before the Munich.
Correct. Well,
Olympic
hilariously,
drops.
yes, it is. Yeah, hilariously, it's been updated before it's
So, Adeptus Sororitas, we start with the A's. So, Archoflagellants, Exorcists, and Morven Val have all gone up.
Makes sense, they were everywhere.
Paragon War Students have gone down, along with Zephyrim, Retributors, Repentia, and Dominions. 105 points for 5 Retributors and Multi-Melts. It's not,
All right,
not
yeah,
bad.
I think that's a 10-15 point drop.
Custodies have only gone down, so this includes Alaris Custodians, which is good because they were way too expensive. Custodian Guard, Wardens, and Virtus Praetors have all gone down, as well as the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike. Sure. They've all gone down. Admech, no changes, because they've just had a codex.
Yeah, that's true. I think just very quickly on the Custodies, they have gone down in points, but it is worth noting that the reduced squad size is still the same.
Right.
So even though they've gone down in points, you aren't back to running 10-man bricks of Custodian Guard. So fine.
Eldari, we've only got 2 changes. So Night Spinners and Wraithguard have both gone up in points. Everything else is exactly the same, which is quite interesting. Same goes for their Forge World units. Agent Imperium, no changes. Astra Militarum have just had Manticores go up.
Yeah.
That's it. across the entire range, which
Hitting
is
the ignore line of sight.
But this is kind of what I mean is like.
why manticores.
Well, because
out of
I
They
guess
can ignore
because
line of sight. That's the
they
missile
can,
one, right?
Yeah, they've got indirect fire, but they were already, Astra Militarum weren't doing amazingly well. I'm not sure if Free Manticores was the stonks build, and then like to go to the Eldari, it's the standard Games Workshop double tap. Yeah. They've nerfed the Wraith Guard. They've nerfed the Fate Dice to help them.
Yeah.
They've nerfed the Fate's Messenger, which was a common thing to give them an auto 6. And they've increased the points.
Yeah.
It's just like bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, you know what? They probably needed it, but they maybe needed 1 or 2 of those things, not 4 at once. Because how can you know which one of those is making a difference?
Yeah, I'd argue it's not really balance. That's just slapping something one way without thinking about the wider picture of the entire
January
faction.
panic slate.
Panic slap. Black Templars, Grimaldus, Helbreck, and Crusader squads have gone up. Nothing's gone down. Blood Angels are as they are. Chaos Demons have had a lot of points drops. Almost everything. Nurglings and Blue Scribes have gone up, but everything else has had a points decrease for the most part.
But not enough to save them, you think?
So, I played a game against James a couple of. It would have been last month now. So this was pre-Dark Angels Codex, but it was a very fun game because, spoiler alert, the lion goes and fights 3 greater demons.
That's awesome.
So now it's not like a competitive list, it's not a tuned list. I've got 3 big monsters and then I've got 60 infantry and a couple of characters, that's it. That list gets 160 points. So I get 1 extra squad of infantry.
Yes.
Like who cares?
It's not enough.
It's not enough. And like I don't want to see them being like 80 points for a unit of demons.
No.
It's just
because at what point do you just...
I would rather their impact was more powerful rather than them being like a horde of melee.
Just give them a Vars in charge. That would really help.
Like, you know what? Like, this is the weird thing: is with the Death Guard, they gave them the options. All they need to do is go. If you're running the Demonic Incursion ability, the following units gain the following abilities: Slaanesh, Advance and Charge. You could give, I don't know, Devastating Wounds on the charge for Nurgle, for Khorne. Give Tzeentch, something. Yeah. It's just a bit like.
You roll ones on your save, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like, you don't want to bog it down too much, but it's just.
They need a new detachment.
They do.
They need something. The poor fellas.
They need the god-specific ones.
Yeah. Chaos Knights have had points drops almost everywhere. All of the big ones, apart from the Rampage, have gone down a bit. The Executioner has gone down, where the Brigand has gone up.
Yep.
And the rest of the dogs stayed the same. Weirdly, all of the Forge World Knights have all gone down.
That's because the Forge World Knights are... So basically, if it's a Titanic, it's gone down. It's gone down by about 30 points. It's not enough to make you want to run them.
Yeah.
And this again is the real problem that I have with the points changes, is they've looked at the Chaos Knights de facto list, which is, I think it was 1 Stalker, 6 Brigands, 2 Lone Operatives from Demons as allies, and then the rest are Carnivores. And they've gone, well, let's increase the points on Brigands, remove the ability to take those Lone Operatives, and then decrease the points on the big boys. That will help. It doesn't. Because like all you've done is just make the list that was the only list that kind of worked and made it illegal, and then gone, okay, cool, what are we going to do to help them? Like nothing, really. Like a 30-point drop on the big knights.
Well, it's not getting you another knight.
It's not getting you another knight, is it? It's the same with Imperial Knights as well.
Chaos Space Marines have had points increases across a number of units. So Accursed Cultists have gone up, Chaos Lords, Chosen, the Dark Commune, the Forge Fiend, the Obliterators, and the Warp Talons have all gone up. Warp Talons was an interesting one to see go up.
Yeah, that one confused me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because all the others are like, those are basically all the lists that were Chaos Space Marines over the last like 3 months of competitive play.
Yeah.
I believe Warp Talons were being used.
I mean, they do kick out a lot of attacks, and they're stacking with your Dark Pact and everything. It's really nice.
But again, it's that double tap of Accursed Cultists now have less regeneration, less OC, but also points increases.
Yeah, it's just too much, isn't it?
Obliterators no longer get reroll all hits for being undivided and a points increase.
Yeah.
Chosen can't go inside a Nurgle transport, which also had the transport ability debuffed, and they've received a points increase, and their Chaos Lord received a points increase. These are all things that I'm okay with because they were very good, but it's let's do one or t'other, and they never do it, and it's just... And then because now you might see Chaos Space Marines go all the way down to the bottom, and they go, oh, now we need to figure out which change to reverse.
Yeah.
In better news, the Core Lord of Skulls have gone down in points, so I'm absolutely delighted about that. Dark Angels, we've seen nout but drops. So,
Oh, no.
this is for the index, right?
Yep.
What?
Those points drops are for the index.
What
Why?
do you mean they're for the index? They have a codex.
Well, at time of release, I believe the codex is only available in the Deathwing Assault box, which has only just gone out on pre-order.
Oh.
Yeah, a bit of a
So
weird
the
one.
codex doesn't technically exist,
Yeah.
but if you buy the book, it does exist.
That's
And then
such a mess.
And then we get, and then we
Such
get
a
into this
mess.
really weird scenario of going, if I've bought the book with the points in it,
Yeah.
well,
You are allowed to use that.
I'm allowed to use that book.
Wait, what does the app use? The book?
That is an excellent
That's a
question,
really
Lawrence.
good question.
What does their official...
We don't know. Because here's the problem. You know what the official stance on Games Workshop is you always use the most up-to-date points. Well, technically, if you are one of those people that have pre-ordered the codex, you'll get the codex after this comes out, which means that this will be the way to use it between now and Saturday, and then you'll get your codex if you bought the box set, and then you'll have to use those rules. But if someone doesn't have that codex, they'll have to use these old ones. So does
I
this
don't
mean,
like it.
But then are we going to get a Unitoran field manual to update the points in the codex when that comes out? Because we probably will.
This is why a lot of players just can't keep up and become overwhelmed.
It's too much.
It's
too much.
too much. It's way
It's
too
also
much.
just not communicated clearly.
Yeah, and also, like, I'll preface this by saying, to publish, a page of points in a codex which is bought, for it to immediately become redundant,
It's ridiculous.
Is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part about it
Just
is...
don't even put the page in. I know they put a QR code in.
Yeah.
I know they've put that in as like, oh, well, this will save us, but come on, guys, you can be better than that. Just don't put the points in.
I think
if
the
you're gonna be that
most
way.
frustrating thing about all of that is that it's not even a case of it's immediately redundant. It's no one knows if it's redundant.
Oh, I know.
That's the worst part about it is you are literally in limbo.
Yeah.
Which is just awful.
Yeah.
And now they're doing these
not good
updates. They should lean into it and be like, we are constantly updating the points values. Here's the code to see the up-to-date points.
Yeah, and if there were no points in the Dark Angel Codex, you go, okay, so where do I get my points? I
Yeah.
go online.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the latest thing.
Yeah.
Fine.
I know the argument will be it's there so that if you don't follow it along, you don't worry about the balances. You're only playing with your friend or your kids or whatever, then it doesn't matter. But at the same time, we live in a world where everyone has a computer in their pocket.
Yeah.
If someone is that desperate to not be online, they're probably not buying a codex from you. They're making up their own rules, or they're still in the 80s of playing first edition.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of, that's such a cop out. That would
Yeah,
be such
it
a
is.
cop-out
And also, I
response.
just think, you can't print something and sell it and make it immediately redundant. Like, I don't know of any business that does that.
Very
It's a
strange.
really weird model. So it is simply fixed by removing the page. Anyway, Death Guard.
Death Guard. So Plague Marines and Plague Burst Crawler have gone up. Now I think Plague Marines for 90 points at 5 models is still perfectly fine.
I
And you
think it's still
compare them directly to Intercessors, which have also gone down to 80. They're still way better.
You compare those to Rubric Marines, which are 105.
Gross. Now, Death Shroud Terminators and Typhus have both gone down. I think Typhus is great.
Typhus and Death Shroud were already good.
But, I mean, it's only 5 points less for 3 models,
Sure.
but still, Typhus reduced it. I think he's gone down 10 points.
I think you said like 20%. He was like 100 points, wasn't he?
Oh, he was 100 points. Yeah, he's had a
Yeah.
big drop.
He's gone down 20 points.
He's pretty good.
He's already good.
Now, what's crazy is that Fetid Bloat Drones have gone down by 10 points. They're so good.
They were already
I
great.
hate those things.
No, you hate the Blight Haulers.
I hate them all.
You hate the Blight Haulers. The Blight
How
Haulers
many
are the
points are
same.
the drones now?
90 points.
Well, the
90
Blight
points.
Haulers I hate because, I mean, they're cool if you're a Death Guard player, don't get me wrong. But I hated them because they're really good at shooting and they're really good at combat.
Yeah.
They've got like the duality which every competitive player wants. They can just do everything.
They're really good.
I hate them.
That was
and you
weird.
can take loads of them.
Well, the Blight Haulers you can take up to 9.
No.
The drones you can only take 3. But for 90 points, they're a bargain.
They were already great.
Yeah, really good. Lord of Virulence has gone down as well, same as Typhus. The Blight Lords haven't changed, they're still absolute pants.
Yeah, they're terrible.
but the Lord of Virulence does boost them up, so that's good. Deathwatch have had no change. Yeah, right, so Drakari, here we go. Boy Raven Bomb has gone up. However, your Venoms have gone down to 70 points. Talos have gone down, Succubus, Reavers, the Raider, Drazar, Grotesques, Hellions, and Incubi have all gone down.
Like we're not talking huge
not
point
massive,
drops. We're
but-
talking 5 to 10 points.
Yeah.
But it's still, if you were running, the list was 6 Raiders. Well, you've got an extra 60 points now.
Yeah, this is...
It's enough points changes
Very
to kind of
nice.
go. It's a weird one because it's in stark contrast to the Demons, because I think the Demons received overall more points drops in terms of the overall army, but you've got just enough points drops in there to slot in an extra unit or two.
Yeah, or an extra transport.
But it's an
as
extra
well,
unit
you know.
that you've then got on top of all your extra abilities, on top of your extra rules, and it's just you. Again, it's that really frustrating thing of their release process, and let's do this balanced data slate update every 6 months or 3 months, whatever it is they're going to do in 10th edition. It's so slow that you can't see what is A, making a difference, or B, being able to react to those changes. I can't see this is suddenly going to make Drukhari go up to a 70% win rate. No. But let's say it puts them to 57. Well, that's just outside of the Goldilocks zone. But what's caused that? Is it the points drop? Is it this change? Is it that change? Is
Well,
it
you'll
the
never
media
know,
attachment?
'cause
You'll
you did it
never
all at
know.
once.
Yeah.
Did it all at once. It's just, there's so much going on that, and then the update schedule is too slow for a game that they can't have it too quick for, because it will invalidate people's very expensive models, because it's not a computer game. And so therefore you can't update it every 2 weeks with a balance patch, because it doesn't matter, because people go, well, it's fine because I can still just use this new guy.
Yeah, part of the wonderful appeal of playing Old World at the moment is that, you know, they've obviously, in many respects, released everything like an index, because of course, how else could they do it? But you can kind of sit comfortably knowing that you're probably not going to get an update every few months and go, well, these are the rules and this is here and the points are here and this is valid. And you know, you can carry on that way.
I've just had an idea for a podcast that I'll let young James know about.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Hold that thought.
We'll rattle through some more. Genestealer Cult have had Pure Strain Genestealers reduce. That's it.
Yeah, great.
Grey Knights have had one increase, one change, which is Brotherhood Librarians have gone up.
Okay.
To 110 points. Imperial Knights, everything has gone down apart from the Warglaive and the Gallant. Everything else has gone down a little bit. Leagues of Votann have had increases for the Thunderkin, the Einhir, Hearthguard, and the Sagittor have all gone up. Might mean we can use our army soon because it's too small. Necrons have had no changes at all.
New codex.
Yep.
Fine.
Orcs have had a bit of a mixture of changes. Very quickly, the Battle Wagon, the Boomdacker Snaz Wagon, the Hunter Rig, the Kill Rig, Killer Cans, Custom Booster Blaster, the Scrap Jet, and the Morkanaut, oh baby, the Ruckchuck Squiggbubby, and the Shock Jump Drags have all gone down. Mm-hmm. Knobs, for no reason, have gone up, as well as Squig Hog Boys, and the Truck has also gone up in points.
They did feature the more competitive lists, I think, but yeah.
I mean, the knobs I think only went up by 5 points per 5, so it's not like I'm going to lose sleep over it. It's just a bit more of a, okay, but why? The Squig Hogs I understand because they were great for their points cost. All the buggies going down by 10 points, great. I'm happy with that because I like the buggies.
Yeah. So Space Marines, obviously this is quite a big faction, so I'll just quickly go over it. Aggressors have gone up. Centurion, Devastators, Inceptors, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Scouts, and Whirlwinds have all gone up.
It always makes me laugh, the Centurions, because it's one of those firstborn kits that they can't get rid of because people keep buying them, so the rules well.
In terms of the up, the Assault Intercessors have gone, downs. The Assault Intercessors have gone down. The Heavy Intercessors are now 100 points for 5 models, which I quite like.
Quite good.
Yeah, I've always quite liked it. 100 points for 5. Ooh. The Infernus Squad's gone down to the Flame Boys. Intercessors, 5 Intercessors are now 80 points.
Sure.
Cool. Outriders have gone down to 80 points per 3 models, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Rebooted Gilliman and the Stern Guard have gone down, and that is all the changes for Space Marines. Nothing for Space Wolves. Poor Tau.
Oh dear.
Poor Tau.
The Crisis battle suits have gone up.
Good grief. So
isn't that their only good unit?
yeah, 6
Isn't that their
crisis
only good
suits, 6 crisis battle suits, wait for it, is 400 points.
Oh my goodness.
400 points.
But wait, your Riptide has gone down.
Yay!
But your gun is still pants.
Oh, and also, sorry, the Vespid Stingwings have also gone down, which is a big boon.
Cheeky.
Big boon.
Cheeky.
Right.
Oh, and the commanders have gone down a little bit as well.
But they've nerfed their only good unit.
So I'm okay for the most part with the war gear changes. I know a lot of people really don't like the lack of granularity on the war gear changes. And I agree to an extent. You know what? Plasma pistol on a sergeant, I don't care. You want to put a power fist on an intercessor sergeant, you go for it.
There are times where I agree with you. There are times they could definitely remove the granularity, but overall, I want the granularity.
That is pointed because you're taking free cyclic iron.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're taking free flamers,
it's
pointless.
It's the Ynnari thing.
And this is the whole issue of. And this is. I know someone in the comments. No, balancing the competitive scene and trickle down balance. This is not trickle down balance, guys, because someone that wants to run anything other than free cyclic iron blasters is being now punished for competitive.
Yeah.
That is not trickle down balance. That's trickle down punishment, which is really bad for the game.
It also shows the lack of granularity is a mistake.
It is a mistake.
Because
I don't think they needed as much granularity as they had.
Yeah.
But this is where I would have been like, you know what, Crisis Battlesuits, make them 120 points for free, but you go cyclic iron blasters, 80 points, and you go, oh, but what if I only want one? It's 80 points.
Yeah.
You know,
is it perfect way of doing it for a unit like that?
I mean, maybe not perfect. You know, it could do with some tweaks, but you know, like, but
it's a good start.
It's the same
what
with Def Company. Why would you ever take anything but power fists?
Exactly. No, but I can have my chainswords.
Yeah,
but,
no one
but
cares.
why would you do that?
No one cares about
Why would you do that?
You know, whereas if it was Def Company with chainswords, 100 points. Okay. Def Company with Power Fist, 125 points. You're still, it's no different to previously where you'd go, I pay 5 points per model, basically. But now you're just buying them in bulk.
Yeah.
You know, it could do
the bulk buy scheme.
Yeah, it would do. So it would need some tweaks and stuff. But that is the perfect example of why balancing for competitive is not necessarily the best thing since sliced bread, because they won't be able to slice any bread because they're 400 points for 6.
Yeah, and also if you don't play competitively and you love the idea of your crisis suits having all flamers, now you're getting hammered for it.
Well, what if I want to run one flamer? So I've got a bit of, I'm going full fluff. You know, it's like they're in the fire knife pattern. So I've got a plasma rifle, a rocket pod, and then I'm going to slap on a flamer so they've got some close range support.
Which is also really cool.
Yeah, and also that's because that's what crisis suits do, is they're not meant to go triple weapons. They're meant to have a weapon for all kinds of different scenarios for the most part. I'm now being punished because I wanted to run them fluffily because someone ran 97 cyclic iron blasters. You know.
T-Suns?
No changes.
Nothing.
Literally just
Nothing.
It's not good. That's not good.
Nothing at all. Bit of a weird one, that.
They needed changes and they didn't get them, so they're going to suffer.
So Tyranids, the Broodlord, the Gene Stealers, the Norn Assimilator, the Emissary, the Screamer Killer, the Toxicrene, Trigon, and the Trinifex have all had a bit of a drop, whereas the Death Leaper, the Gargoyles, the Neurolictor, and the Pyrovores have all gone up. Uppity pops.
I believe the Trinifex, Katie was saying, went down by 45 points.
Oh, that's pretty
It's a
significant.
big old drop.
Yeah, big
off
old
a
drop.
cliff. See ya.
I'm not sure if the Norn Emissary needed a drop. I mean, he was quite expensive, but
Quite popular, I thought.
Yeah. And finally, the World Eaters. The Forge Fiend has gone down. Interesting. So a World Eater's Forge Fiend is 145 points. A Chaos Space Marine Forge Fiend is 200 points.
But that's because a Chaos Space Marine Forge Fiend can get sustained hits on 5s with the Dark Pact, is getting devastating wounds, is re-rolling ones to hit and wound with the stratagem. Oh no, wait, no, they're not anymore because it would be the Mark of Nurgle. So you see this issue of multiple nerfs or balance changes. We don't know what's going to cause the fix. These guys, I think, 145 points for their Forge Fiend. Their Forge Fiend, I think, applies a -1 to hit. They suppress a unit, which is still good. It's nice. It's nice for World Eaters because they're like, stop shooting my dudes. But it's also not devastating wounds with sustained hits on 5s.
Yeah, it's interesting. Lord of Skulls is the same, 450, same as Chaos Space Marines. The 8-bound, the Exalted 8-bound, Khan, and the Master Executions have all gone up.
Interesting, Khan went up because I still didn't rate Khan.
Khan's cursed.
Khan is an interesting one because I know we don't rate him here, but that's because we roll really, really badly with him, and it just that's TT canon. Is Khan is terrible when he's on our tabletop. In competitive play, at 80 points for what he does, he's a missile.
Yeah, he's cheap, but I was.
I mean, he's 100 points now. He's still very good for 100
just
points.
like Master of Executions, you know.
Yeah, but remember with the Master of Executions now going up, having a worse relic, is he as good?
Well, he's the same points now. 100 points for him, 100 points for the Executions.
Yeah, but are you giving him Are you counting for the relic as well?
No, but that's pre any.
Yeah, but he needs the relic to do the business.
Yeah,
is kind
that's
of
true.
thing. So again, it's that whole thing of let's reduced the strength of the enhancement, which gives them really reliable blood blessings. Although they have dropped the points on that one, the Favour of Khorne.
20 points, yes, they have.
So that's
yes.
gone down in points because it's once per game now. But they've done that change. They've changed the other relic. They've reduced the they've reduced the invuln from the Prince, which again I'm not really sure if that was a thing, but correct me if I'm wrong. They've also removed the fixed. No, I don't know why I'm air quoting fixed. They fixed the jank of putting Exalted 8 bounds in Rhinos, but then also increased their points.
Yes.
So again, it's that whole thing of which one was the problem? Was it the bad interpretation of rules or their cheap points?
Well,
no one will know because...
The Rhino thing was just a mistake.
No, I know it was a mistake, but again, it's that whole thing of were World Eaters doing well because of this mistake, or was it because they were too cheap?
Yeah.
We will never know now.
Yes, they've just slapped all of the changes together. That is the field manual done.
Done it. We
In
did
fact,
it.
that is the data slate, the updates all complete.
That's January done. We'll see you in June or July.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really interesting one. There's definitely, I'm with you, there's some changes that I was expecting to see, and then there just wasn't any.
Some factions that have had nothing changed is confusing for me.
It's, will the nerfs to Eldari and Chaos Space Marines be enough to make Thousand Suns good? No. Like, just no. Will those nerfs help Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights? No, because they've also been made objectively worse by the removal of other silly stuff which I didn't agree with, you know, but it's still just fine, you know. This is the problem. Without being able to do, because of the nature of the game, it's not a computer game. We can't update every 2 weeks and go, right, then do a little tweak, then do another little tweak. Let's just reduce the damage of that from this percentile by 2%. You know, they can't do that because it is a very expensive hobby and people have a lot of stuff and these things take time to generate. We don't have instant access. You know, I saw someone say once, oh yeah, but the minute that one tournament's done, you'll get information. No, that's not right. And also over the course of 3 months, you're playing less games of 40k than an entire weekend of an esport, you know, like League of Legends or Counter-Strike or whatever. So you can't update it that quickly. But because they can't update it that quickly, they have to do these huge, massive changes. But then because they do these huge, massive changes, you don't know what is causing the change. No. Because it takes so long to sift through. And we know that their team is tiny, and we know that they're only really receiving feedback from a very small select group. Yeah. It's not representative of the game as a whole.
No, and not necessarily representative of, you know, the wider player base.
No.
You know, but it is what it is. Look, there was some cool stuff in there as well for sure, changes wise.
Big win for Drakari.
Yeah, big win.
Yeah, nice and unexpected, to be honest. I mean, I would have just taken the Archon joining the Incubi. Yes, and the -1.
What a treat.
You know, I would have just taken that. A whole new detachment's fine. Points drops, I think, if I'm honest, as a Drakari player, completely unnecessary, given they made all of those changes.
I think we'd have to look, like, if it turns out that actually it's like, oh, it's only like 30 points, like whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it could be a bit more than that.
Both the main transports dropped by, I think, at least 10 points on the Raider, so that is not insignificant when you talk to Drakari players. So anyway, look, cool, exciting, because we can now play with these new toys and see how the meta settles, so to speak. If you didn't get any changes this time round and you are one of those factions which is struggling, I'm sorry. Hopefully that will change in the future, or hopefully you get a codex, some nice surprise codex. Or I like your idea, some surprise detachments would be really nice.
Or maybe, don't worry about the competitive scene and just play with your friends and make up your own rules. It's your hobby.
Ultimately.
You do,
Yes. For now, I have been Lawrence, you have been Chef, and you have been Beards. We'll see you in another State of Play in the future, hopefully in a not too far distant future. Until next time, bye-bye for now.